So, it's another day, it's another night, and another video. So, today my agenda is to have an oral about the rooms division. There will be 8 questions that I'll be answering. So, stay tuned. So, we have the first question. What activities do you undertake when preparing reception for service? So as for this question, as we've known, receptionists are the ones who interacts directly with the guests. So before having that process, they have to have a preparation wherein it depends upon their preparation within the duration of that shift. For example, they have 4 shifts. We have morning shift, afternoon shift, and night shift, and lastly, the mid shift. So, what do we do here when it's morning shift? When it's morning shift, it starts at 0700 hours and finishes at 1530 hours. Wherein they processes the checkouts, prepare for the days of arrivals. As for the afternoon shift, it starts at 1500 hours and finishes at 2330 hours. As we say here, they manage the process check-ins and also deals with the guests. As for the night shift, we have the starting point, which is 2300 hours, and it finishes at 730 hours. So, in the night shift, they usually do the preparation of nightly figures, the processes, early checkouts, and also the table text. And as for the last shift, which we say the mid shift or also known as swing shift, it starts at 1100 hours and it finishes at 1930 hours. In here, they usually introduce to cover meal breaks for staff and also assist the morning and afternoon staff as well. So those are the things that usually the receptionists do before they go on with the interaction with the guests or other things to do in the front desk. So as of now, we're in the next question. We have, how do you check expected guest movement for the day? Why is the activity important for the operations? So as for this question, in order for us to review what would be the expected guest movement in the daily basis, we have to check the daily arrivals list, or also known as the arrivals list. In here, it is important because we have to review and ensure the bookings are correct and the right rooms is allocated to the guests in order for us to lessen the problems in the daily basis. We have to make sure that every request and reservations of the guests within their rooms is being followed and also executed well. After that being said, we have the third question, which is, what factors do you consider when allocating guest rooms? So as a receptionist, your first job is to really check what are the main guest requests in order for us to know how do we allocate their rooms depending upon their main requests. Usually, when allocating rooms, attention needs to be paid off to the arrival list on which special requests and room rates may be included. And also, the housekeeping staffs are also the ones who will be coordinating with the receptionist which rooms are to go and which rooms are not being used with that day because it's out of order or these guests are having a extended stay within your hotel. So those are the things we must consider. After that, when it comes to groups, the things that we need to consider when allocating them is the less popular sections of the hotel. It is the things that being considered because the less popular rooms that being sold in the hotel would be occupied, so there is a chance that a hotel could be full house or being having a high occupancy rate within the day because almost all of the rooms are being accommodated depending upon the numbers of the guests within that day. So in this question, the fourth one, it is being said that how would you follow up on certain guest arrivals? What would you do in case of an arrival which is tentative and hotel is fully booked? So before answering this question, I'll be defining what is uncertain arrivals. The uncertain arrivals are pointing out with the potential no-show guests, which is going through the list of tentative guesses or probably the non-guaranteed guests because they're the ones who's not having a proper deposit but just having a reservation, can be through the phone or having just an email. So how do we handle these things? Usually the receptionist's daily job is to really follow up these guests that being expected within the day if their reservation or accommodation for that day will be happening. It is important because there is a chance that if a tentative guest is not continuing his or her stay within your hotel and the receptionist doesn't able to check that, there will be a big loss within that room, that potential room could be given into the waiting list of guests. So as for the follow-up question, which is if the arrival guest of having a tentative reservation is being continued but your hotel is already fully booked, it will be going to the same process, which these tentative guests will be going into the waiting list of guests. Then the receptionist will do the process of checking again the expected arrival guests. Then after that, if there is a certain guest that would be having a no-show or probably canceling his reservation, that type of room that is being canceled could be offered with these continued arrival guests. Usually, these things are being handled by the receptionist. So that's why it is really important to really review the arrivals list and approach each possible guests according with their accommodation with that day. So there will be no possibility of having too much loss with those rooms in a certain day. So as we continue, we have the fifth question, which is where and to whom do you distribute daily arrivals list and why? So as we say, to whom does the arrivals list being given? Usually, it is being disseminated into different departments within the hotel. There are the uniform staff, which we say the porters, the concierge. As for the housekeeping department, they also have it. The security, the laundry, the food and beverage, and also the kitchen staff. So how do we say that it is important for them to also have the copies of arrivals list? It is important to have these copies in order for each department to have a heads up with the numbers of guests to be expected and also to accomplish their main tasks in daily basis of their jobs. So as we said earlier, we have the housekeeping staff. The housekeeping staff is having the arrivals list because of the following things. They have to consider the staffing level on how many staff is going to their jobs within the day. It will depends with the numbers of occupancy. And as we said, we have the planning of daily tasks. In here, they have to know the numbers of rooms that is being cleaned within that day and also maintained in order for them to estimate the numbers of shampoos that will be put into the rooms and also to know what are the requests of the guests. So the next department is the concierge. It is also the same, the staffing level, which they will estimate the numbers of staff that is being going into their job within that day based on the occupancy. And as for the next thing, they must consider the arrivals list to have within the day because they might be unexpected numbers of groups that is going to accommodate within your hotel. So they must prepare and organize the luggage storage for it and also the ways on what strategy they will be having in order to accommodate the guests of these big group numbers. So as we move on, we have the porters. The porter's job in having the arrivals list is to really know and identify when would be the busy times and also the quiet times. Why? Because having arrivals list, they will be able to welcome and also assist the guests with their luggages. And as we say, this arrivals list helps the porters to identify the numbers of guests that is arriving and also the rooms that they will be assigned in order for them to really organize the tags of the luggages of the guests in order also to disseminate these tags of luggages into the proper rooms that it must be given. So as for the security, it is also important because when it comes to VIP, it is their job to really secure the security of these guests' accommodation. And when would be the particular guest would be going within the hotel. So moving along, we have the food and beverage. When it comes to food and beverage, having the arrivals list, they'll be able to manage to estimate what are the numbers of guests to be expected, how many meals, and what are the possible requests would be. In order for them to become ready, they have to know the numbers of guests to be expected. And also, it helps the restaurants to know how many staff they will be having within that day because it will depend within the occupancy rate. And as we move on, it is also a consider of having the arrivals list because when it comes to group and tours arrangement, it involves restaurants and bars. That's why they have to become ready with this large number of groups. So, moving on, we have the laundry. When it comes to laundry, it is important to know the number of laundry staff there will be requiring within the day, how many shifts is going to be meet or demand within that day. And also, they have this planning of daily tasks to identify the busy and quiet times too when it comes to arriving and departure of the guests. And also, lastly, they have to determine when the laundry needs to become open or closed based on the guest turnover. So now we are down to the kitchen. When it comes to kitchen, it is also important knowing the arrivals list in order for them to know the number of guests to be expected to be arrived in order to estimate the numbers of food or plates that they will be preparing. And also, if they needed a shift for the assistant staff or if they needed another shift for an assistant staff because of having an overload of occupancy or plates that is must be, and also having an assist with the shift planning of their staff. So as for the last one, we have the management, which is important to notify the management of the arrival where the management has indicated they want to welcome the VIP arrivals. They usually do that in order to give a much more warm welcome within these people. So now we have the next question, which we say, how do you explain the reservation to newly arrived guests? To newly arrived guests, usually their reservations is being explained using a registration card, wherein in this registration card, the details of the guest's reservation is being indicated, which the job of the guest is to really verify if those informations are right, and if ever there would be changes within the information being there. For example, the guests must check if the spelling of their names are correct, and when it comes to their details of address, email, and also contact number is correct. And when it comes to the length of their stay in the hotel, if it's right, or they will be having an additional number of nights that is being going to their reservation. And after that, lastly, the mode of payment. If they will be using credit card as usual that is indicated, or they will be going into cash payments. So those things are being considered when it comes to reservations. So we have this next question, which we say, a walk-in has requested a double room for 5 days. How will you determine if you can accept these guests or not? So as for the question, how do we determine if this type of guest, which is walk-in, must be accepted or not by his or her request? So we usually do in the hotels is to really check the background of these walk-in guests. If he had a past accommodation within our hotel, for example, he had a accommodation or reservation here in a hotel in the past years, and we will be checking the records of that. If ever this guest is being blacklisted or having any reports of having improper actions within the hotel, this is the time when we will be rejecting or having an approach of saying that we cannot accommodate them, but in a way that they won't be offended within our words. So those things are must be considered when we will be giving a accommodation within the walk-in guests. So now we are down to the last question, which is, demonstrate how would you refuse a walk-in guest because the house is full. So when these things happen, usually the receptionist or the person being interacted by the guest is just saying, by apologizing, after that say the reason why these things happened, and the last thing is giving a chance these guests of having alternative things. For example, in interacting the guests when having an approach of refusing them within their accommodation is by saying that we're really sorry about this, ma'am. We also not intended to let these things happen, but there are some rooms that is out of order. As we've said, we also wanted to accommodate you, but these things happened. But as an alternative, we also want to offer, if you wanted us to become your assistants in having a reservation to other hotels for your accommodation, and also assist you within your transportation going to that hotel. Is that would be fine, ma'am? So this is the example of on how approach can you do it. So guys, now we are done in answering these questions, and after that, thank you very much for watching this until the end. See you in the next video.